Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today we are going into the vault. In the vault, we are going to be pulling out a post that I blogged about but never brought up on this channel, and that is my 5 favorite books that I read in 2013. 2013 was the year before I started Literary Gladiators. Technically, we were beginning to put it together, and we filmed the pilot on December 19th of 2013. But I wasn't really... The only content we released in 2014, and it wasn't until 2015 that we released we released anything away from that. That is, we only released general discussions. But I put together a list of the 5 best books that I read in 2013. I'll leave a link down below to the original blog post, which actually has 10, but I want to concentrate on the 5. And the 5th best book that I read that year is one that I do not own. I borrowed it from my uncle, and that is Destined to Witness by Hans J. Massaquoi. And Hans J. Massaquoi was a black German living in Nazi Germany. He had a white German mother and a black African father, and his father left them. So he was raised by his mother and white relatives and neighbors and friends. It wasn't until he went into school where he began to feel the effects of being bullied and outcasted, in particular with the rise of Nazism. It got to a point where his segregation and them being able to make decisions to keep him from being part of the community and being denied a spot in the military were justified because of the way things operated. He talks about his life experiences. He didn't necessarily... There was no discussion about concentration camps because he didn't have to endure that, but he did endure a great deal of prejudice, which is still very much unfortunate and unacceptable. And I think that his account is a very important one to read. It's an intriguing account, and I think he does a fine job recalling everything that took place. It was a very insightful and an enthralling read. Number 4 on my list of the best books that I read in 2013 is Touching the Dead by Carlotta Holton. I'm happy to be able to recall Carlotta Holton and something that I enjoyed from her because I often bring her up when I go over the worst-rated books that I've read according to Goodreads, where her Salem Pact is always at the top, or at least it has been during the 3 times that I completed it. But Touching the Dead is a collection of short stories with the theme of superstition. Holton writes horror fiction, but these are works of fiction, but they are tied into multicultural superstitions from across the globe. And some of the examples, it includes a granddaughter that uses a haunting stare against her creepy grandfather. There's a story about how the dyeing of Easter eggs brings good fortune. And then the title story, Touching the Dead, refers to how one that touches the dead in a casket during the funeral is bringing to themselves a good omen of staying alive and healthy. I really like what Carlotta Holton put together with this, and I think that this is a great approach and a great theme, and I think that she's somebody that's definitely worth examining, because a lot of her horror is based on things that historically happened, or myths or superstitions, and how she ties them together in creating a story like this, or in creating something of this nature. The third best book that I read in 2013 is The Stranger by Albert Camus. This is the best book of his that I've read, and I read this in 2 sittings and was amazed. We discussed this on our channel back in Season 3, and this is probably the premier work when it comes to reading about existentialism. Meursault is telling the story on a first-person account, but at the same time, we do not have an idea as to what he's really thinking and why it is that he thinks this way. Quoting my blog post, I wrote that this book is gold for the reader that wants to dissect the story in every which way they possibly can, and is one that can be subject to rereads at any point in time. Because there's so much that you can get out of this, even though you're not going to get much out of Meursault. What does he think about his mother? Why did he shoot the Arab on the beach? Why does he think in a certain way? Why does he deny the existence of a higher being? We're not meant to know what it is that he's thinking, but he lives in a world that craves and demands answers. This is something that's definitely worth studying and analyzing, and I might consider rereading this. If there's something I would like to reread, it's The Plague that he wrote, and I would also like to read The Myth of Sisyphus. The second best book that I read in 2013 is The Giver by Lois Lowry. And this is an outstanding dystopian piece, in the way that it is so haunting in its nature, pertaining to Jonas, who lives in a world of sameness. People aren't able to necessarily live a life of natural happiness, because if one person is incredibly happy and the other person is incredibly miserable, that's not acceptable in this world. But at the age of 12, everybody is given a role in the community. And for Jonas, it's that of being able to possess the memories, both good and bad, of the past. And this title, The Giver, who's featured on the cover, is the one that shares these memories with Jonas. In the book, he does it by touching his back. In the film, he transmits it through his hands. But the memories of this past are memories of our current present, and those that we should cherish and appreciate. And I think that reading this book gives us that need and desire to do so. We're not meant to take the direction that's being told in this piece. We all have opportunities to make our lives better. None of us are going to be in either really good or really bad positions, but we should encourage the natural happiness, the positive aspects, the abilities to persevere in this world, especially as an American reader. And we don't want to surrender these things to the government. Because once the government gets their hands on it, they're going to do what's most opportunistic for them. And that's what we see within this piece. I think that this is probably one of the best dystopians and cautionary tales that I have read. And I think that people really need to read this and really immerse themselves in the message and prevent the bad things that take place in this dystopia from happening. We also discussed The Giver in discussion during our 6th season. The best book that I read in 2013 is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. And I grouped these together because I feel that both of them go hand in hand, and I think that if you're going to read one, you have to read the other, because both visits offer enlightening experience. We discussed this during a 4th season discussion. I also named this my 5th best book that I read of all time, grouped together, and during her first adventure, which is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Alice makes her way into Wonderland and meets all different kinds of characters. She meets Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, the Dormouse, the Queen of Hearts, the Mocking Turtle, and in Through the Looking Glass, she meets Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Humpty Dumpty, the Red King, and throughout these experiences, she engages in some absurd encounters, but while we may see them as being absurd and out of the ordinary, there is a great deal of logic to them, because why don't we stop and think, do we live in a world that is normal thinking, or are we really absurd in the way that we operate as a species? I think that this, what you would call a duology that Lewis Carroll put together, both of Alice's Adventures into Wonderland, are definitely worth studying. I know that there are people and scholars that have been studying The House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I think that this really is something that's worth studying based off of her encounters and being able to elaborate on the points of view and the explanations that each of these characters has to offer. This book is just brilliant. These are 4 out of the 5 best books that I read in 2013. The other one we borrowed. But I want to thank you for tuning into this video, and I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. For now, keep reading.